Prime time once again in the DMV. It's Seattle, it's Washington. You would have thought this is the 90s with all the throwbacks, but we are back once again. It's the Ballin In Burgundy podcast, Prime time.
Let's talk about it.
Burgundy Ballers, pro football fans, ladies and gentlemen, new viewers, welcome back to the Ballin In Burgundy podcast. Myself, main event JD, John Dowd, back at it again, just by myself, represent BIB by myself. But you see the man to my technical left, on my side of the screen, just to my right, the man behind Seahawks Forever, the man who I've been watching for a few months now, but on Sunday it's going to be a little bit of a war. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Dan Viens to BIB. Dan, welcome to BIB.
Thanks, man. It's good to be here. I'm excited about the game on Sunday. And you reminded me about the throwback thing. I absolutely love the whole concept, and from both sides now, because not just, I'm old enough that I've been there from day one. And so I remember when the throwbacks were the uniforms for the Seahawks. And back then we didn't think they looked good, but it's different. Everything's all tight and stretchy now, and they don't wear pads. Like, the stuff looks bomb, but from a they were the Redskins then. Am I allowed to say that?
Oh yeah.
I went to Washington State University. I'm a big Coug alumni. So Mark Rypien, watching him do what he did, winning a Super Bowl, winning MVP and all of that stuff in those old uniforms, that's going to bring back some cool memories.
It's going to be real interesting because nostalgia is a hell of a factor. So we'll see who decides to get passed out on Sunday. I think I know who it is, but we'll get to that point.
Well, the last time we wore these uniforms, we gave up 35 points to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So, I mean, maybe that's something you can lean on a little bit. We also scored. No, we gave up 38. We scored 35. So I guess it depends on which way you want to look at that.
I can only hope that my Commanders can score that many points on Sunday. But when we get there, ladies and gentlemen, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe here on BIB. Road to 1,000 subscribers, currently at 762. So 240 of y'all who are not subscribed, hit that subscribe button. Once I get to 1,000, I might do a giveaway. I might not. You will see when we get to 1,000. And you can follow all of our social media accounts up here and in the description. And now go follow Dan on YouTube and on Twitter at Seahawks Forever with Dan Viens. All the things down in the description and on the title. But let's just kick it off. These jerseys alone. I'm repping a white with a dash of burgundy just to throw it off. You guys obviously have those beautiful blue and grays. Now, like you said, when these debut as your official jerseys, we're all like sitting around like, these are the jerseys? You give it a few years and you're like, can we have these back? That's us in Washington with these whites with the actual correct helmet, not these all burgundy helmets with one single stripe. Yeah. I need these back. What was your reaction when you saw this was the game that it's going to be throwback versus throwback?
The first thing that popped in my head was Mark Rypien. As I mentioned, it's just growing up watching kind of, I was there when the Hogs and John Riggins and those Redskins teams that had such an identity for being so physical and tough, and they just always were built around tough physical offensive lines. It's kind of ironic that that's now what the Seahawks are trying to get to on offense, after years of really struggling to find an identity. And so that's kind of cool. But yeah, the Redskins were always one of those teams that I was a local kid. Like, I know some people can root for anyone. I was, ride or die with Seahawks, Mariners, everything. Like, I have to be locally attached to a team to be emotionally attached. But there were other teams around the league that I would admire from afar, and the Redskins were always one of those. I mean, I just always, I mean, some of this isn't great memories, but there are moments in sports in my life that I'll never forget where I was. And Joe Theismann against the New York Giants on Monday Night Football was one of those, unfortunately. But just watching his career and then just Riggins, and I played running back when I was young, and I just loved his style and how physical he was and everything. They had an identity, and I think that's one of those things that's so fleeting sometimes for teams in the NFL, as teams are so quick nowadays to just show people the door. Coaches, GMs, rosters turnover quicker than they ever have. Finding that identity is harder than ever and more elusive than ever. And the teams that do it are probably the ones that we're all talking about right now being in the playoff race.
Yeah, I like how you brought up identity because I was just ironically going to get to your team, and the identity of your team right now is just give the ball to Jackson Smith and Jigba, and good things happen. What like be damned to Kenneth Walker, who I've been a fan of since his Michigan State days. Be damned whether it's a glass of Zach Charbonnet, whether it's AJ Barner or Cooper Kupp. It's the Jackson Smith show featuring Sam Darnold and company. I expected JSN to be a great wide receiver because so far from 2016 to now, every Ohio State wide receiver outside of Marvin Harrison Jr. has been good to great. Obviously, not top five, but like the quantity of great receivers, I think, has the edge over the quality of LSU receivers. What has been your just like epiphany when it comes to JSN being right now probably a top five, top three receiver in this league?
It's one of the great ironies of this season in a way, because I spent much of the offseason talking about how, we expected a step forward from JSN this year. We expected him to blossom in, now with the number one wide receiver role after they traded DK Metcalf. And I thought this offense was going to suit him. But I thought the passing volume was going to be so much different than we're used to that the numbers just weren't going to be there. Right. In fact, I said many times over the offseason, like, he caught 100 balls last year. That might not ever happen again. Not as long as Clint Kubiak is calling plays and Mike McDonald gets the kind of offense that he wants. And here he is on pace for 120 catches and 2,000 yards and 10 touchdowns. It's unbelievable. It's one of the great sort of mysteries of this season, that no matter what teams do to try to stop him, that it hasn't worked. And, we saw the 49ers week one try to bracket him and double him in the second half, and he still had a couple of huge plays that gave him a chance to win that game. We saw Tampa Bay make some major adjustments at halftime to try and double him, and he still carved him up. And then last week on Monday night before the bye, the Houston Texans came in leading the league in everything on defense and only giving up 12 points a game. And D'Amico Ryans and with Derek Stingley Jr., one of the great cover corners in this league, arguably one of the best two or three. Yep. And he carved them up. Like, as much as we sit here from a Seahawks standpoint, we think, man, we'd like to see some of these secondary targets get more involved. Man, we'd like to see some more consistent production from the tight ends or the rookie Torrey Horton, or even throw to the running backs a little bit. But they don't need to, because when your first read is usually Jackson Smith and Njigba, and he's open, and you have such a great connection, like he and Darnold have, which only took them an off season to achieve. You just don't need to get to your second and third read. If it's working, you just keep doing it. And it's been remarkable. And kudos to him. I couldn't wish it upon anyone. He's just one of the nicest people you'll ever meet, and hard worker and everything you want in a football player. So good for him.
If it ain't broke, don't fix it. I wish we could do that here in Washington. But you brought up Torrey Horton, the Colorado State receiver, who I selfishly also wanted. You can go back through the offseason. I wanted like 17 different receivers on this team. Torrey Horton, Ricky White III, Ted. I want like Trey Harris. So many receivers. I'm selfish. The fact that you got two of them, I'm so upset. But Torrey Horton, I think, has also blossomed as a similar role as our Luke McCaffrey this year. You use him everywhere in special teams, but the few times you see him on offense, it's working even better.
It's funny you mentioned Luke, because he was one of my draft crushes a year ago. I just really, really, really wanted him. He was a guy that I think when we took him, it was such a surprise that he lasted as long as he did. I mean, I knew I'm a huge draft nerd. I do hundreds of mock drafts every year. And I went heavy Torrey Horton, but I was usually taking him in the third round and feeling really comfortable with that. He's coming off the knee injury and the hamstring injury, but you figure, well, he's going to get better. The 2 years prior to that were so productive that, and the traits were so undeniable that, like, I'm not worried about the injury, right? Unless your medical staff deems that it's something that's going to be, chronic and long-term, which in this case it wasn't. The fact he lasted until the fifth round was just unbelievable, or actually the fourth round. To me, is just a pure highway robbery. But then I figured, we're probably not going to see much from him this year, because I knew the passing volume was going to be down. They brought in Cooper Kupp, paid him quite a bit of money to be a wide receiver too. There were some other guys on the roster that had been here for a while. And then I knew that there was going to be a lot of 12 personnel and the tight ends were going to be involved. So I didn't know how much we'd see from a target share perspective. And that part's been accurate. But what he's done with those targets, scoring touchdowns and making big plays and even doing some things on special teams. Like he has a punt return touchdown already this year, 91 yards, I think. It was just spectacular. He looks like a legitimate long-term wide receiver 2 partner for JSN. He hasn't quite gotten there because, Cooper Kupp has that role. However, Cooper Kupp showed up on the injury report this week, and he's questionable for Sunday. And if he doesn't play, then that offense is going to look different than we've seen it all year. They rely very heavily on Kupp in the running game and to seal the edge and do somewhat he does as a blocker. He's come up with some big third down catches. He has shown that he is still capable of being productive. He gets separation. He looks like a guy that maybe the Rams gave up on a little too early. Not that they're worried about it. They're fine. But if we don't see him on Sunday, then we could see a whole different target share, and Torrey Horton could be a big part of that.
Yeah, let's talk about those injuries because I put them up and I'll put them on the edit too. It's not just Cooper Kupp who's questionable. Another receiver in Derek Young is questionable. Jaron Reed, your defensive tackle, is questionable. Wide receiver Jake Bobo, guard Christian Haynes, I was a fan about it coming out of UConn. Julian Love, one of your starting safeties, and one of your backup tight ends, and Eric Saubert are out. You are without a few offensive pieces and crucial defensive pieces. Need us to take advantage, but how likely, or let me phrase. How certain are you about this defensive line and secondary to just shut down whoever we throw out there? Because it's going to be Tebow and company.
Yeah. Let me work backwards a little bit because the offensive injuries, some of those were kind of surprising to us. We didn't expect Kupp to be on the injury report this week, especially coming out of a bye. There were no indications going into the bye that there were any issues there. And then the other guys might seem like ancillary pieces, like Derek Young is arguably wide receiver 5 on this team, but he's a young dude with a ton of athletic talent and a guy that's massive for them on special teams. And their special teams have been among the best in the league this year in coverage and in returns, both in the kick return game and on punt returns with Horton. And Young's been one of the primary kick returners along with George Holani. He's had some big returns, and that return team has set this offense up near midfield on a pretty consistent basis this year. So that's a big loss. That's a big underrated loss. The other thing that concerns me, especially if Kupp can't go, is you might not think much if you're a Redskins. I'm sorry, I'm old. If you're a Commanders fan, you might not think much of a Jake Bobo missing the game or an Eric Saubert. Like we're talking wide receiver 4 and tight end 3. But those two guys, along with Cooper Kupp, are the best exterior, like on the edge run blockers in the tight end and receiver room on this team. It's a huge part of that Kubiak/Shanahan scheme. And this is a team that went into the break knowing that the one thing on offense they need to get much better at is running the football. And that's something that they've staked their claim on, and they went out and changed the entire offensive staff because of it to chase a good physical running game that can consistently get you yards even when the other team knows you're going to run the football. That hasn't quite come to fruition. There's signs that it's getting better, and there's signs that they might even be close to a breakout. So you come out of a bye and you think, well, they do the self-scouting thing. This is when we'll see some of that progress. And now you're missing Eric Saubert and Jake Bobo and Cooper Kupp. Like those are some of our best blockers on the edge. So that concerns me. On defense, the Jaron Reed one would concern me if I thought he was going to miss the game. I don't. I think it's a minor-ish kind of thing. But I'm on an island by myself when it comes to the defensive line. You can make an argument it's one of the best, if not the best groups in the league this year with the way Leonard Williams is playing and Byron Murphy in his second year, and then Reed and some of the other guys they have rotating in, and then the edge pieces. But I've been screaming for months, like all through the offseason. I thought they should have paid more attention to interior defensive tackle in the draft. It was a good class for that position group. I thought leading up to the trade deadline, I'm out here calling for like a rotational defensive tackle on the interior. And it never ceases to amaze me how easily the fan base dismisses the injury factor at times, because they'll I get so much pushback on that idea. Like we're fine on defensive line. Really? If you don't see Jaron Reed play this Sunday, I think you're going to feel a lot differently about that because he's a very, very big part of that rotation. And if you're a Commander fan and you see that Jaron Reed's inactive on Sunday, that's good news for you.
It'd be great news if some of your defensive line was not playing, but also what I'm about to read for our Commander's injury report is screaming, your secondary should shut us down. Obviously, no Terry McLaurin. He was ruled out on
Yeah,
Wednesday
yeah, that's
with the
big.
quad injury, and I'm about to go into rain here in a second. Our third, fourth string tight end, Colson Yankoff, he's out. John Bates, Jazon Newton, Laramie Tunzel, they're all questionable. Daniels, Kinlaw, Wagner, Matt Gay, they're all good to go. So if we're without Jazon Newton, it's going to be Sheldon Day. It's going to be Deron Payne. It's going to be Eddie Goldman. That's not going to be a great factor. I've said this since pretty much week 3 for our Commanders fans. Shut Terry down. For the
Mhm.
love of God, shut this man down. He's considered week to week. We can get him in week 5. Well, from 2 to 5, that's 3 weeks. All right, thank you for the Steiner math. Well, then from 5 to 7, misses game 6, plays last week, re-aggravates, and now he's out this week. Could have avoided all this. He put him on long-term IR.
I'm I'm telling you this. It's interesting you bring this up because it's been a big point of conversation around here the last couple of weeks too. Like this new-ish rule that you can have a bunch of guys designated for return and only have to miss 4 games on injured reserve. I feel like teams are still trying to figure out how to manage that, and that they're not always making the right decisions. Like we've had a number of key injuries here over the last couple of years that they've decided not to put a player on injured reserve, and then he ends up missing 4 games anyway because it's worse than they thought. And I actually had my own live stream tonight and talked quite a bit about like it's a long list of things I love about Mike Macdonald, and I think he's going to be one of the great coaches in this league for a long time. One of the things that is not on that list is how he talks about injuries because he seems to be always wrong. And a good example of that is leading into the bye. We were trying to get Julian Love and Devin Witherspoon back. This team has not played their intended preferred secondary group as a whole since the 5th snap of the year. The first 4 snaps of the year, everyone was healthy. And I'm talking about Devin Witherspoon, Josh Jobe, Riq Woolen, the 2 safeties, Kobe Bryant and Julian Love, and the rookie, Nick Emenwari, who's listed as a safety, but PFF actually calls him a corner now because he's playing big nickel. He's playing in the middle of the field. Those guys played 4 snaps together against the 49ers in week 1, and then Emenwari got hurt, high ankle sprain, missed the next 3 weeks. So we were hoping that would happen after the bye because heading into the bye on that Monday night game, Love was questionable, Spoon was questionable, but they both practiced and we thought they were going to play. They didn't. Okay, they can win without him. They did. Then they get the bye week. Then we come roaring out of it. Now they're 100% healthy, right? We got the Rams coming up in a couple of weeks. Let's go. And then we find out that Julian Love aggravated his hamstring injury during the week off. So clearly something happened while he was working out on his own or picking up one of his kids or something. And so then we find out not only is he questionable for Sunday, but the IR might be a consideration for him as well, in which case it would miss our first meeting with the Rams. So frustrating that we don't get to see that group. Mitigated slightly, maybe more than slightly, that a guy like Terry McLaurin is going to be out because, man, he's good. And then you get Jayden Daniels back. So it'll be interesting to see because we haven't seen here how Mike Macdonald really intends to mix and match Devin Witherspoon and Nick Emenwari because they both can do a ton of damage in the box and near the line of scrimmage. And none of us really know how much Devin now is going to play outside versus inside and what they're going to do with Nick in the meantime. So lots of questions that will be answered on Sunday.
I selfishly wanted Nick Emenwari here in Washington because I think he would have been a great piece for us considering our lack of any true development in the secondary. But I digress. You brought up obviously Jayden Daniels. It is official. JD5 is back on Sunday Night Football. I think he might have rushed his injury a little bit with the hamstring again. I could go on a 20-minute rant about how you should have shut him down a few weeks ago, let him time to breathe, protect the kid from himself. I could bring the comparisons to RG3, even though his mama and RG3 says don't do it because there's good reason not to compare the two. Vastly different. I kind of want to go over with both quarterbacks actually, because Sam Darnold played phenomenal football outside those last 2 weeks for Minnesota, and he's picking up where he left off. In 7 games, he's 1,700 yards, 12 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, only taken 9 sacks through 9 weeks. That's phenomenal for someone who coming into the year was like, oh, he's going to Seattle, he's leaving Kevin O'Connell, who's the QB whisperer and everything. And say what you want outside like your Drake Mays, your Prescotts, your Mahomes. These are quietly MVP numbers, statistics, and trajectory.
It's been, if it wasn't for the year JSN's having, it would be the story here in Seattle. And really it is. It's 1A and 1B. And I think it's one of the stories of the league this year is that as long as the Seahawks have been looking for a legitimate franchise quarterback, and I would even include the last few years of Russell Wilson's tenure here. I think ever since about 2017, there was real question marks about how long they should stick with Russell. Should he get the next extension? And maybe they should have moved on then. And then you do, and you expect right away they're going to take all the draft assets they got in that trade, and they're going to turn around and draft a young quarterback. They didn't. They go with Geno Smith. They got some really good. They got his 3 best years of production out of him, despite tons of issues here with the offensive line and play callers and everything else. Sometimes Geno was the only reason the offense did anything. And then Geno says he wants out and asks for a trade in the offseason and leaves. The Seahawks had already, like, they hired, I truly believe this. They did not see this coming. And they thought Geno would be a really good fit in this offense. So they have to pivot. And they could have pivoted to the quarterback class, which was not great. And they didn't have high picks or resources anyway. You pivot to the free agent market is the next thing you do, or the trade market. And there was nobody available there. Kirk Cousins wasn't a guy they were going to pursue. And so usually the free agent quarterback class stinks almost every year. It's a bunch of it's a bunch of guys like Carson Wentz, and maybe you get lucky and there's a Daniel Jones on there, a guy who's been labeled as a bust. And but for someone like Sam to be there coming off the year that he did, when it looked like this guy might finally be putting it all together, just doesn't happen very often. And they acted quickly and they pounced, and now they look brilliant for doing that.
Paid him a lot of money.
Yeah. And people call it a cheap contract. $105 million for 3 years is not, it's not, as far as quarterback contracts go. I get it. It's team friendly ish, but it's amazing how quickly it's changed. Because remember, right about that same time, a couple months later, they go draft Jalen Milroe in the 3rd round.
Remember that
time I thought was a really inspired pick. Like, layer yourself, give yourself protection, do what the Green Bay Packers have done for years. Like, you think Sam Darnold can be a franchise quarterback. That's plan A. You want that to be the case, but let's also take this other guy with a ton of traits and a ton of upside and see if we can develop him in the background so that maybe a couple of years from now we have something. We're 7 games into this, and already it's Jalen Milroe might someday be a starter in this league, but it's not going to be in Seattle. It'll be as a trade piece. How quickly can we sign? It's gone from, hey, the way they structured Sam Darnold's contract, they can get out of it without a lot of pain after the first year if they act quickly. No, now it's like, when do you extend him? Like, he's here long term. It's legit. Yeah. We see quarterbacks play well in flashes or for short periods of time or whatever, but it's not real. It's not sustainable. This is so real. He's played 2 bad games in the last, let me do some quick math. 18 plus 7 is 25. He's played 23 really great games out of 25. He's top 6 in every single quarterback metric this year. Top 6 in every metric. And yet he throws the ball less than any other starting quarterback. They have a 50-50 run pass split, and he's doing the things that he's doing. It's remarkable. It's fun to watch, obviously, as a fan, because it is so legitimate and sustainable. And what was cool for me personally is I got access to training camp this year, and I watched almost every practice from up close, and I saw this happen. I saw him get better every day and get better at the things that he was supposed to have been weak at: under pressure, getting the ball out quick, all those things. So to see that improvement then translate to the regular season when real bullets are flying is the most encouraging thing, and all the metrics and numbers back it up. So that's been fun. Jayden Daniels is a guy that I had as my QB1 in the draft class last year. I did, over Caleb Williams, over Drake May, all those guys. I kind of thought I was bucking the trend a little bit, but he certainly made me look good last year. And then I would just ask you in response, like even before he got hurt, just didn't seem the same. Do you just chalk that up to a slow start, or are there some other functional things on offense there that kind of have contributed to it being a year that looks like, the lazy analysis would be regression? I don't think that's what it is. Sometimes circumstantial things just happen, and offenses don't operate as highly as they used to.
It's a mix of both. Because I'm looking at Jaden's stats now, and obviously stats don't tell the whole story for obvious reasons. In 5 games, he's just over 1,000 yards, 8 touchdowns, 1 interception, taking 13 sacks, another 44 yards on the ground, and an interception. Big problem was you don't get Terry McLaurin back until 2 weeks before the season starts. Well, let me do some quick elementary school things. That's March, April, those are the draft. May, June, July. Let's call it August because 2 weeks before the season is like August 25th, 26th. So let's call it August. What's it, 6 months without top one wide receiver?
Yeah.
You bring Debo in, great. You drafted Jalen Lane. He's been up and down. Lou McCaffrey's taking a big step up. Noah Brown was hurt all camp and is still hurt. I say you cut your losses or take a team who might want him. Michael Gallup was an absolute camp body. I've said it for 5 weeks straight that he was a non-factor. Cliff somehow jumped off his own first name because this offense has taken a nosedive for whatever reason. And yes, last year it was a slow start between Tampa, between New York, and between Arizona, but also he was a rookie, new system, trying to get there. He and Cliff had the whole offseason to work. Yes, you're without Terry, but cool. You could have used Debo in the same role. You could have used Jalen and Luke and Noah and Ja'Cory Brooks and Jacoby Jones and Chris Moore, even though we all hate his guts here in Washington. You had all this time to prepare, and the offensive line outside of Sam Cosmi was all there. Tunsil and Bedash and Connerly and Coleman. He traded for Larry Tunsil during the offseason. Don't know what happened to that progression. You can't find Debo without him, out here coughing up the ball for that interception last game. You can't find, you see glimpses of Luke McCaffrey in the offense, whether it's a toe tap, whether it's a deep bomb for a touchdown, whether it's special teams heroics, because every time he catches the ball in special teams, you're minimum starting at the 42-yard line. It's a great thing to have a McCaffrey in your system. Only took us a year and a half to figure it out. But there's definitely growing pains, and I don't know if it's because of Jaden's injury that hasn't helped things, or if Cliff got checked out because of Terry, or he was trying to do too much too good. Like, really great game with the Chargers. And then Atlanta, we didn't look great. Dallas, we got killed. KC, we got killed. And a lot of it has been this god-awful defense. Stats and ratings might not prove it. The eye test shows this defense is a liability, especially with all the injuries. Daniels has been the reason you've been in games and the reason you've lost games. Daniels with those 3 fumbles against, I think it was Atlanta, is the reason why you Chicago. That's what it was. Against Chicago is the reason why you lose that game. Throwing the Green Bay game, that was not a great strength from this offense at all. Defense going to stop Tucker Kraft mac and cheese to save their life, like they're lactose intolerant. But he also wasn't helping himself either. So I think this is a game for more Daniels than Darnold to say, I need to show what I can do again. And I've said this before, if we lose this game, this is a must-win situation for Washington. If we lose here to Seattle, not because you guys are a bad team, you guys are 5-2, 6-2. Yep. I have you guys as a top 2, top 3 team in the NFC, top 5 in the league, as unpopular as that might say. I'm not even saying that because you're here. If we lose this game, I'm putting a bow on the season saying, I'll see y'all in the offseason.
Yeah, 3-6 would be tough to come back from. The one thing I did notice, and obviously I haven't watched, the all 22 of every single snap Commanders have played this year, but before he got hurt, a couple of games that I watched of Daniels, it seemed like he wasn't making as many plays with his legs. And I don't know if that was just small sample size. I missed some stuff but in the couple of games I watched, I remember thinking, oh, teams have a better plan for him this year to contain that. But also sometimes I know coaching staffs can't help themselves at times with mobile quarterbacks, and they want to try to get them to stay in the pocket, and they try to drill out of them the instinct to go take off and run. So I didn't know if it was kind of one of those things more than the other, but that was just something I noticed early on, that it just seemed like he wasn't hurting teams as much with his legs, and that's such a big part of what he does.
Yeah, it's been a mix. Uh, in a lot of drives against KC, Mariota was designed to QB runs, especially on that first drive in the first quarter before he throws that pick off of Debo's hands. Is you saw him get designed run after designed run after designed run. We're like, if this was Jayden, could he have done this? Yes, but the big thing with his agility is he does what Lamar and not to make the comparisons, but because of the same styles, what Lamar and Mahomes do is they are a throwing quarterback with a God-given talent in legs.
Mm-hmm.
Lamar has progressively gotten better as a passer this season, obviously with them being 1-6 and being hurt. But last year he was throwing all over the yard, but still putting up rushing yards. Mahomes has a Chris Collinsworth, making a fool of himself in the booth every week because he's doing launch, side arms and diving throws, but he's getting it outside the pocket. Big thing for Jayden last year, get outside the pocket and then throw the ball or take it out the sidelines, whether it's the Panthers game, whether it was the Raiders game, whether it was against Chicago last year, whether it was against Cardinals last year. He had a really big rushing game there. This year, I don't know if it's because of Connerly on the right tackle side, between learning a new position and him being a rookie. I don't know if it's because of his hamstring, like 2 injuries in 7 games, or Cliff is not adapting, and that's part of the reason why. That Daniels just does not look like himself. People want to say sophomore slump, we told you so. If CJ Stroud had a sophomore slump and he took him to the second round of the playoffs, I will sign up tonight. I would have signed up in August if that's a sophomore slump.
Yeah.
This right here has much more written in the stars than just a sophomore slump or creative differences like this is pro wrestling. This has injuries. This has play calling. This has a lack of trust in someone. I don't know who it is.
And then it's so weird for me to grasp the concept that maybe your defense is struggling, because obviously we know Dan Quinn very well here in Seattle, and won a Super Bowl with him, and almost like he was the second choice. Like if John Schneider doesn't go with Mike McDonald a year and a half ago, I think Quinn was the next guy up, and he could have, if things were slightly different, he could be the head coach here. And then, obviously Bobby roaming the middle still there and doing what he's doing. And he's just a legend here. One of the great players we've ever had, and one of the great people I've ever met. And so there's those connections, but it's hard for me to wrap my head around the defense not being great. And the one thing that I will say over the last couple of weeks, I've noticed, like when I'm on Twitter and I'm just scrolling through my timeline, it's all football stuff, and it's full of analysts and national voices and people that are really, really smart about this stuff, smarter than I am. And they all kind of use the same word when describing this defense, that it's slow. The team speed across the board on defense is just lacking. Do you agree with that?
Across the board, yes. Between injuries alone, Dietrich White, Javonte Jean-Baptiste, and Dorrance Armstrong, you lose your top 3 edge rushers on defense. That's a killing blow because your only 3 pass rushers are Vaughn. I occasionally see the field as liability in coverage. Miller, Preston Smith, who is just a fossil out there in a modernized jersey, and Jacob Martin, who had 2 sacks on Mahomes, 3.5 sacks in 2 games. So he's
Former Seahawk. Yeah.
Former Seahawk.
Yeah.
So he's gotten better in 2 weeks, but I need to see a lot more. Linebacking core.
That's kind of
Bobby,
his career.
That it's been his entire career. Let's be honest. Between here, Chicago, Seattle, ever Jacob Martin's, it says show some flashes. Got to get better.
Mm-hmm.
The biggest liability besides the secondary is this linebacking core. We can't find what happened to Frankie Louvu last year. He was supposed to come out as a top linebacker this season. Can't find him. Maybe you got to put him. Maybe you got to find him at edge, put him at edge, try something, because he had 8 sacks last season.
Yeah.
That's high for a linebacker at his position. Cool. As much as Bobby Wagner is leading second highest tackler in the league behind Jordan Brooks in Miami, complete liability in pass coverage, whether it's a tight end, a running back, or a wide receiver. The moment a team snaps the ball and a receiver is going in motion, that's normally Bobby tracking him. Well, if I have Bobby Wagner tracking let's go Torrey Horton for example. Let's say for whatever reason you guys put Torrey in motion, send him on a post, and Bobby's covering it. I know for about a 90% probability that's going to go for a touchdown. Why? Because our secondary can't tackle, our corners can't cover, and Bobby's always trailing by 15 yards.
Yeah, wasn't he the closest guy in coverage on the last touchdown the Chiefs scored? Was that Rasheed Rice? Like
Yep.
he just ran right by him. Yeah, I'll tell you this about Bobby. We've let him go twice. And once under Pete Carroll and then once during the coaching change. Both times I thought it was the right thing to do. And both times he proved me wrong. Like when we let him go the first time from a financial standpoint and from a diminished skills standpoint, like teams were already starting to pick on us in pass coverage. And this is 5 years ago, right? He could still come up and tackle. He could still play north-south. He was still a great guy in the locker room, everything you want in a football player, all that, but he just couldn't cover anymore. And so when he went to the Rams on that 1-year deal, I thought right thing for us to do. But I also thought, well, the Rams will get the most out of him because they're going to play him differently. They're not going to have him be on the field 100% of the snaps. Guess what? They played him 100% of the snaps, and he led the league in tackles and everything else. But they had a really good year defensively that year. But they had to, and it happened here under Pete Carroll in Seattle too. You literally had to do things in your game plan and your coverage plan to make up for his deficiencies. Then he comes back again for 1 year, and I thought, okay, I feel pretty good about this because he was productive last year with the Rams. And he was fine. And then we let him go again. And I thought, okay, he's going to retire. And then Quinn gets the job. Okay, that makes sense. But he's not going to be a full-time player. And then he goes and plays 99% of the snaps last year. Like at some point, it's almost like I wonder if Quinn, especially because he's so close to him, he has so much respect for him. Like somebody's got to look this guy in the eye and say, can't have you on third and long. Can't have you on the field. We're going to sub you out. You're at that point in your career. We need you on first and second down or third and one, but not in obvious passing downs. You can't play there anymore. And I'm shocked that really smart coaches are still making that decision and they're losing games because of it. And I hate to say that because I love Bobby.
Yeah, we've said this for weeks in Commanders country for obvious reason. You drafted last year Jordan McGee. Obviously, his injuries played a factor last year because I've been a Jordan McGee guy since Temple. But when your defensive corners comes out before the season saying, hey, we had packages, we had dime and nickel and man packages for Jordan McGee to come in, that says, oh, they were already considering McGee as the next guy in front of Wagner, thinking, oh, this is the succession plan. You drafted Cam Madrano out of UCLA, you bring in his football brother in Alec, I'll call him Concussion Pobby here on BIB. But week after week after week, for 7 weeks straight outside, and then last week we saw change. It was only ever Bobby Luvu, and you would see sprinkles of McGee, whether it was on goal line, etc., on special teams. Last game, you saw McGee, you saw Tyler Owens, you saw some of these younger guys get those snaps because you can't build a rapport without actually playing. And there were some highlights, there were some lowlights because McGee's finally getting on the field. He's still young. Still getting some of those rust bolts coming off the injury, but we've been saying it for weeks. You have supposedly a succession plan with McGee. You still drafted Madrano, who is a safety in a linebacker's body. Their words, not ours. And oh, by the way, Ale Cahill is a true hard-hitting linebacker because you brought him in for a reason. Besides being the UCLA connection with Kane and Coach Norton. Use the guys. Madrano finally was active for the first time in 8 weeks last week. Didn't play a snap. He suited, booted, and logged off the game. That's all he did. Play the fellas. You don't know what you have until you play them. I'm sure y'all said the same thing last year when Jason's your third wide receiver behind Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf. Oh, why did you draft him? You have DK Metcalf, but let's see what you have. 100 catches. I think just around 800 yards and a few touchdowns. Oh, then this year he's killing the league. Oh, what could we do this year on defense? Like with Joe Jr. in over his head right now. Use the young pieces you grabbed, or go sign it. I said this on the Burgundy Breakdown, my collab show, the Reed Easy and One Guy Talking Sports. There were a ton of edge rushers in this past draft class that I was a fan of. Antoine Powell-Ryland, Mohamed Kamara, Phileo Diggs, etc., etc. I won't go down the whole list. They're all on practice squads. Half these guys were draft picks and they're on their team's practice squads. Go get them. It's going to cost you what? Million, maybe a buck five, half that guaranteed to cycle him through the practice squad. If you can bring in Chris Moore and Robbie Chosen, you damn sure can go get some younger pieces. But I don't know why the defensive woes keep happening.
Yeah.
But we're also not alone, considering every week I hear from other Seahawks fans saying we got to get rid of Riq Woolen, we got to get rid of this guy. You give me a bag of chips for Riq Woolen. What's that going on?
Only the stupid fans. Only the dumb ones, man. I'll tell you. Look, I'm down on Riq too. I'm a lot more pragmatic about it. Like as a rookie, he looked like he was going to be a long-term All-Pro. We were having conversations around here about who has the better upside, him or Sauce Gardner. And then we saw massive regression. And then there were some accusations of not wanting to come up and be physical in the run game, which I thought were a little bit unfair and overblown. And he had some injury issues. I think there was just in the changeover from Pete Carroll's staff to Mike McDonald's staff, I think there was a difference in how they teach technique in the secondary that was uncomfortable for him for a while, and just a different mindset. I think Carroll let him play a little more free and easy and kind of freelance and play instinctively, where McDonald, it's more about like, nope, if you see this, you got to be here. And, everything needs to work together and you can't freelance. Everybody's got to do their job. To where I spent the offseason hoping they wouldn't sign him to an extension. And I was glad they didn't. But keeping the door open, like maybe it all clicks in year 4. And you become that guy at 6'4" with a 4.3 40 and all that ball production earlier in your career, and you put it all together, and now you're a superstar, and we'll pay you $100 million. Cool. It hasn't been that, and so I'm good with letting him walk, right? But the idea that this roster would be better without him than with him is ludicrous. First of all, we haven't been fully healthy, as we talked about at the top of the show, in our secondary. And so I want as many guys that can cover on the roster as possible. But also, you want to trade him? Cool. What are you going to get for a guy in the last year of his deal that's been as inconsistent as he has? Not enough to make it more worthwhile to keep him on the roster. That all being said, Sunday, we might see Riq Woolen getting half the snaps, because we do get Devin Witherspoon back. Josh Jobe is playing at a high level, and Nick Emenwari is fully healthy. And so Nick Emenwari is going to be the opening slot. Devin's going to start on the outside with Jobe, is what I suspect. We saw that for a minute in the Thursday night game, week 4 against Arizona. That's how they did it. And then Witherspoon aggravated his knee injury in that game. And so I think that's what happens. I think Riq comes off the field and only plays in dime or in certain situations based on personnel.
Loosely.
Because of his length. Yeah. I don't think he's a starter on Sunday, but the idea that, okay, well then we get him off the roster. Okay. Well then next man up is Nehemiah Pritchett, 5th round pick out of Auburn last year. Like, is that where you want to go with that? Or Shaq Griffin at 30 years of, is that where you want to go as your 4th corner? That's an important position, and he'll help us win games. And oh, by the way, he played his best game of the year against Texans on Monday. So I don't think Riq's going anywhere.
All right, fair enough. Yeah, I figured I'd throw that out there because I'm hearing like, oh, send him to, I don't know, Philadelphia, send him to Miami, because Miami needs everyone.
Well, ESPN keeps stoking the flames because they keep reporting based on an anonymous league executive that he's available. So
yeah. It's the same rumors that Myles Garrett's available. That man ain't going nowhere. He's pissed. He's pissed on that team, and he got $200 million.
He got 5 sacks and lost, and didn't even get Defensive Player of the Week. That boy's mad. He's going to get 6 sacks this week,
and he still won't get it. He still won't get it. He'll go to like Dexter Lawrence or Jordan Carter or Nick Bonito, someone deserving but outrageous,
or Leonard Williams.
Or Leonard Williams. I could very well see that happening. But speaking of Leonard Williams, and kind of starting to round this out, what is a key matchup for you going into Sunday? Because I have a few just off the top of my head, but what's a key matchup for you that you're going, this is going to be a story of the game?
I think it's Bobby against the tight ends, and they're going to try to get him matched up against players that are a problem for him to cover. And, that could be Kupp if he's playing, with those condensed splits that the Seahawks like to use. Like, Bobby's responsibility could be anybody. That could be getting the running backs more involved in the passing game. They haven't been up until this point, but maybe if you think that he's got coverage responsibilities in the flat on a couple of plays, maybe that's where you end up going. Or we keep waiting for this breakout game from the rookie Elijah Arroyo, second round pick this year. He's tremendously athletic for the tight end position. We've seen signs. He was heavily involved in the scripted beginning to the game on Monday last week. I could see them trying to get a guy like him matched up against Bobby and try to take advantage of his coverage skills. I just felt, even before we talked about it earlier in the show, like coming into this week, I think sadly that's going to be a big storyline.
Yeah. Yeah. That was going to be my defensive one right there. To not steal your exact answer, I'm going on JSN on versus whatever corner we're going to throw him. I think it's going to be Marshawn on him one-on-one. Get some safety out from Darnell Savage and Quan Martin. Mikey probably gets Kupp. Trey Amos probably gets Horton and or Ricky White, depending on who you guys rotate in there. But then we also rotate who gets each corner, because sometimes Amos will be on the one, Mikey's on the one, Marshawn's generally on the one. So I think it's going to be the JSN just burns Marshawn all day, unless Darnold throws the Mahomes pass and Marshawn has a second pick of the year. Great pick on Marshawn, but that's the only play you've ever made in the Burgundy and Gold. But for me, it's JSN on insert cornerback, and I truly think JSN goes for like $125 at least.
And then my other one would be like, if for me, from a Seahawks standpoint, if Tunsil doesn't play, that would be big. As much pressure as this defensive line has been getting on teams, top 5 pressure rate in the league, and yet the 31st ranked blitz rate. Like, they just don't blitz. They're rushing with 4, sometimes 5.
Neither do we.
And they're getting home, and they're doing it with Derek Hall, their best edge player, has been out for the last month. He comes back on Sunday. We did it for 2 games without Dexter Lawrence. Leonard Williams has been the constant, and then Uchenna Nwosu didn't come back until week 5 after 2 years of missing a bunch of games with injury. So those guys, for the first time all year, all 4 of those guys are going to be healthy and ready to go on Sunday. And so let's see, if it's not Tunsil, who is it? George Fant, our old friend George Fant. Would he be the next man up at left tackle? Man, there's a lot of Seahawks on that roster, guys that I've liked in drafts recently too. But yeah, that would be a key one for me. Is if he can't go, like, that's a long day for George Fant.
Yeah, it's going to be Fant or it's going to be Trent Scott, depending on who they want to rotate in there. George Fant says left tackle. They've used him next to nowhere. It's probably going to be Trent Scott getting in there, which he's held his own these past few years, but he's no Laremy Tunsil.
Yeah,
no
people are.
No, it's Trent Williams. If we're talking overall careers, it's Trent Williams, it's Laremy Tunsil, and then insert guys. Now it's like Andrew Thomas, Joe Alt. I can see. Mailata is in there. I'm thinking of another AFC guy, and I can't see his name. I can't see the team he's on.
And now I'm blanking out on the kid in Detroit that went to Oregon. That should be playing left tackle.
Penei Sewell.
Penei Sewell, yeah.
There we go. Although, granted, the
Chargers left tackle on any other team.
He would be. Although he's killing it in Detroit, so I mean they're happy for him. I was thinking of Rashawn Slater because he's also a Charger.
Right.
But I mean, when are they ever healthy? But no, those. Yeah, your defensive line scares me a little bit. Not as much as like an Eagles or a Giants because of the amount of depth, but you guys have like Njigba, Nwosu, Jaren Hall, DeMarcus Lawrence, I believe, is a Seahawk.
Yep. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, he really came up huge. He missed a couple of games with the thigh bruise and then came back just as Derek Hall had to go on injury reserve, and Nwosu had just been activated, so we hadn't seen if he was still on a snap count. And so that the first game he was back was the game after Tampa. So it was in Jacksonville, I think. And we might not win that game. If he was a terror. He had 2 sacks in that game, and he looked like his 26-year-old self again. So Those guys have all been really, really good, and they've picked each other up when some guys have been down. I am looking at your depth chart again. There's so many draft crushes from the last couple of years. Why is Brandon Coleman, has he been hurt? Why is he not starting for this team? He was a guy that I loved more at guard than tackle coming out of TCU. And I thought he had some moments and played well as a rookie for you guys.
Yeah, so he was hurt the first few weeks of the season, and then he's just been inactive because Chris Paul, as much as we all criticize PFF, has him as a top 10 guard, and he's been playing like a top 10 guard. He's given up, I think, 2 sacks all year, maybe a handful of pressures. Like, with Sam Cosmi out, he moved to guard, and we were like, all right, what do we have in him? And we're like, can we keep him there, please? Coleman, I don't know why we tried him at tackle last year. I was I was live for the second round and third round of the draft on Instagram last year. And when I heard Brandon Coleman's name, I was thinking, oh, we got a new guard in the building. They said tackle. I went, huh?
Yeah.
He's not a tackle, he's a guard. So
Yeah.
there's that issue. I think something about these past two drafts with AP have been up and down. They're calling for Coleman to get traded. He probably won't. He's so young, but that also might get us like a fourth for him because like Carolina, Miami, Houston, um, NFC team, the Saints, like they all need just offensive line help. So they might be desperate enough to be like, we'll take your third round pick from last year, give you a fourth. He's young enough, he's developable enough.
Yeah. Yeah. And then it's cool to see a guy like Josh Connerly, and he's had some rookie moments, but I was right there at the Senior Bowl when he got blasted by Mike Green on that unfortunate rep, and he took such a bad rap for that. He got caught in a jump set in the air. I mean, anyone would have done that to him, but that was fun to see. And then some of the guys, I mean, the fact that Nick Ballore is still in this league is crazy to me. It really speaks to just what a locker room guy he is and how versatile he is. And then to see Jacob Martin still kicking around. He was originally the part of so he went to the Texans as part of the deal when the Seahawks acquired Jadeveon Clowney in 2018. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
it's a weird roster for us because I'm looking at yours real quick. Like I really wanted Gray Zabel in Washington. I thought he would have been a really nice piece to help across from Sam Cosmi, but
He's
we
been
know how that
all that. Yeah.
he's
Been
been
great.
all of that. I hate you guys so much for picking him. I'm joking. I thought AJ Barner was a very small, like talked about pick for you guys last year, and he's proving out to be what he's been worth. Obviously, Torrey Horton, I mentioned. You guys got Zach Charbonnet. Uh, Byron Murphy was a shock to me last year, but then I looked at your roster and you were like, nope, y'all needed him. But then you guys grabbed off of Denver's practice squad, listed as a linebacker. He was an edge at Ole Miss, and Jared Ivey. I want Jared Ivey in Washington. He got to Denver, left, and you guys got him. I'm like, y'all want to hand him over to us? Because I'm more than happy to take Jared Ivey in Washington.
I want snaps for him, dude. He's one of those, you were talking a little bit ago about, you got to commit to playing the young guys sometimes, even if it's going to come with growing pains. And he had a great camp and looked every bit the part, and he can play inside and outside. And he's been active on game day a couple of times because of injury, but they haven't really given him any run. And I'm like, work him into the rotation. Like the older guys are playing too many snaps as it is. I'm a sucker for those. I got a sweet spot for those day 3 late round guys when they make it big. But what's funny about you mentioning Byron Murphy is if Jerzon Newton doesn't get the foot injury or the draft, like he was he was one where like a lot of Seahawks fans wanted him instead of Murphy. But we were definitely hunting defensive tackle in that draft, especially a guy that had some juice and could get to the passer a little bit. So
yeah, Newton hasn't flashed, and Flash is a stretch. It was Illinois days. I get the injuries and whatnot, but that draft pick's not looking too hot for us. I don't know if it's because of the injury. I don't know if he lost a mental step. I've been saying this in the past year. He was supposed to be Braden Fisk and more. He was supposed to be the guy that was supposed to be a top 10 draft pick.
He was unblockable at Illinois at times, like
unstoppable.
Yeah.
You would have thought he was the collegiate next coming of like an Aaron Donald. You couldn't not triple team him. If you try, couldn't do it. Now one-on-one blocks, no issue. Can't find Newton.
Yeah.
I it doesn't. I was hyped about the pick because of the talent, and now I'm looking back. I'm like, could have had someone else.
And then you got Mikey Sanders still too, who played for Mike McDonald, obviously at
Yep.
Michigan. So there's all sorts of connections on these two teams.
Teams. Yeah, Mikey's had an up and down here. He was supposed to progress. He's regressed a little bit. Joe Witt Jr. lost something in the offseason, and we're all trying to find it. Because if this keeps going the way it's going, Witt will not be here next season. And it's not because he's getting a head coaching opportunity. It's because we need some other help.
Hmm.
I don't like it. But I go on a whole rant about Joe Wood Jr. I save those for Wednesday nights. No AEW, but Wednesday nights. One thing we do here as we wrap things up is besides the mock drafts, because people call me John Kuiper Jr., it's score predictions. It's a little bit of a bread and butter here. Obviously, you're the guest, and I know who you're going to pick. But what is your score prediction going into Sunday?
With the disclaimer that I suck at this. I usually don't do score predictions. I don't bet because I suck at that. I do feel good about the matchup. Like there's a lot of things I like about that Washington team, but I just feel like the matchup right now isn't favorable for the Commanders. I think Sam and that offense, they're going to be able to exploit some of that middle of the field stuff. That's where he likes to operate anyway. His numbers in the middle of the field, intermediate to deep, especially, are if they're still not first in the league across the board, they're top three as far as passer rating and average depth of target and completion percentage in the middle of the field, all that stuff. And that seems to be where the Commanders are most vulnerable. So I think they'll exploit that a little bit. And I think this defense is ever since that Tampa Bay game, it was 38-35. And I was shocked that a Mike McDonald defense was just getting run like that to where we don't see the Tampa Bay punter at all. He came out after the game. He said, I had a bad plan in place. I made bad calls. I'll fix it. And what we've seen in the couple of weeks since then, and my favorite Mike McDonald is cranky Mike McDonald. And I mean, he fixed it. And now they're getting healthier than ever. They're Julian Love short of being exactly the defense that they wanted to put on the field at the beginning of the season. I think there's some things that the Commanders aren't able to game plan for because they just haven't seen how they're going to use Eminwari and Spoon together. And then that pass rush is going to force Daniels to have to move. And they're so disciplined in how they do that. We saw it against Kyler Murray in just how good they are at making sure they're keeping the edge and they're not being reckless in how they try to pressure the quarterback. He's going to have to be really, really good his first week back. So I will say, boy, coming off the break, what's the weather supposed to be like? What's the humidity supposed to be Sunday night?
Supposed to be. I'm looking at it right now.
5 hours away. It's a little chilly here, but I
Yeah,
kid. I will say,
about mid 60s.
I'll say 24-13 Seahawks.
A little lower than I thought you were going because our
Yep.
defense is stretched. 24-13. Okay.
Yep. I could see us being a little shaky coming out of the break. It's natural grass. There's some injuries. I worry about the blocking at the wide receiver and tight end position if some of those guys can't play. So I'm going to be a little conservative.
Fair enough. I'm too much going to conservative in this. Jayden coming off injury, Tunsil being questionable, Bobby being the liability that he is, and the secondary can't cover a receiver to save their life. Or a running back, but what's the difference these days? I'm selfishly going to take my Commanders just because I have to have some vote of optimism.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go the route of like a 27-24. I think this is to come down to like a Matt Gay field goal, and he just sneaks it in. I call him Mr. Consistently inconsistent, because I can't figure out what his deal is. But I'm gonna go 27-24. I think you guys are gonna kill us in the first half, and I think we're just gonna slowly just take body shots in the second half, like we do every game for whatever reason.
Hey, we have a negative point differential in the fourth quarter. It's the only quarter of this season that we do. And that's given the fact that our total point differential is like sixth best in the league. So that is a concern. We've been terrible on third downs the last couple of weeks. And and we uh, and we've been sloppy. There's been penalties and turnovers. So that's the only thing that concerns me coming out of a bye is you think, hey, they're going to fix all their problems, but sometimes you just don't get your feet under you or whatever. That's I am a little nervous about Sunday. Anytime you face Jayden Daniels, there's cause to be nervous. And I've been saying all year long, this year, as much as any year that I can ever remember in the NFL, is so even. It's so wide open, and it is a week to week league. It's like we can look at every single position on our depth chart versus yours and make an argument that one roster is better than the other. One team should beat the other team, whatever, at full strength. All that matters is which team shows up and plays the best that weekend. It's a week to week league. And there's enough pieces over there on that Commanders roster that that this could go either way.
This is going to be one of the games that, like I said, if we lose, I think the season's over. But if we win, we're going. That's a quality win against a very quality team. Got to keep the momentum going because the next few games for us is like Detroit, it's Denver, it's the rest of the NFC East, it's the Dolphins. So that could be a bye week, or we could be like get blown out for whatever reason. But 24-13 for you, 27-24 for me.
Yep.
I think it's going to be a real interesting game Sunday night. Can't wait because as this goes out, it'll be like 18 hours before kickoff. Because I'm gonna edit this tonight. Hopefully, get it out by the afternoon. But Dan, can't thank you for enough for coming
Yeah,
on, staying on late with me.
absolutely. I was having a great time, and I'm getting used to this. I'm a Pacific Northwest boy, born and bred until about 6 months ago, and living on East Coast time is hard to get used to. But now I'm there, so it's nothing to be up this late talking ball.
Fair enough, fair enough. Yeah, I'll be up for like hour and a half editing this because God knows, I don't use StreamYard for those who know me. I wish I did. It would save me about 20 hours a month from editing, but also editing is a little therapeutic for me because I'm like, oh, I don't sound great at all. I need to get a new mic, need to get a new computer. It's a bad time for me some days, but no, again, appreciate you coming on.
Matt, thanks for having me. It was a good time.
Absolutely. Guys, don't forget that subscribe button here on BIB. Like I said, road to 1,000 subscribers as we head into Sunday. You can follow all those social media accounts. And you can follow Dan at Seahawks Forever on Twitter and on YouTube. All those things down in the description. And if you want to donate to the man, his Cash App or Venmo will also be down in the description because these podcasting things are not cheap. StreamYard definitely ain't cheap. I've seen the pricing. It ain't cheap. But no, Sunday night, prime time, Seahawks, Commanders, Daniels, Darnold, Debo, JSN. It's gonna be a show, whether it's popcorn and beer for y'all or it's $1.50 glizzies and beers for us because they're actually giving us affordable food for the first time since the 90s. But no, that's gonna wrap things up, guys. Let's raise hell going into this game. Don't forget to stay ballin'. We will see y'all out there.